people throw out, things like genius and everything, which I feel, honestly is undeserved, because but maybe I've joked about that and said, like, it's not me being humble, it's maybe your standards are too low.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
IHSAHN, thank you so much for your time today. I know you are extremely busy. There's always a lot of hype and buzz around a new release that you are part of. That can take some energy. So how are you feeling today? How are you doing?
I'm very fine, thank you. I had some time earlier today to do some really nice trekking with the wife and dogs and everything out in some Norwegian nature, which it's dropped to some plus on the Celsius degrees now, and because we've had a long period like minus 20, it's been pretty extreme, which has been really nice too. But so all good and excited to finally, be releasing this new dual album.
Exactly. We'll go into that, and it has taken you some time, and we'll go into that. We'll see what we have time for. But before we do that, we are getting close to the 20th anniversary of you starting your solo career. That I think that technically makes you classic rock. I'm not sure, but are you, like, you've obviously already had to celebrate or be part of a number of celebrations of anniversaries, whether it's solo or with Emperor and other projects and bands that you're part of. Are you, generally speaking, a nostalgic person?
No. I'm not really. Well, I can be nostalgic about family and it's a little bit like. But for music, I think probably because of so early in my career, in a sense, there was so much nostalgia attached to Emperor and Norwegian black metal scene and everything. So there were so many people to be nostalgic on my behalf. So I steered away from it, and I think my excitement for making music is just the same as when we started out. So I just feel like I just scratched the surface of all the stuff I want to do. So I'm not one to be looking back. I do enjoy playing older songs live and everything and revisit stuff, but I think for the most part my head is very much set on the future and new music.
Is that also is that a sentiment you have for your own music, or just music in general? For example, are you more excited about discovering new bands and albums, or are you still kind of in love with Seventh Son of a Seventh Son or Stay Hungry?
I am. That's nostalgia like that, but that's it's nostalgia, but it's also the music that we listened to when we were teenagers.
Exactly.
I mean, there's been studies. You attach. It's not really just about the music. It's just like it's
growing up.
Yeah, it's a soundtrack. You attach so many memories and experiences to those songs. So they mean something in particular. But I'm also very keen on new music. I will admit I'm not the best at discovering new metal related music, but that's more of trying to get out of my head from work mode, and I oftentimes find other genres of music and other expressions where I don't have any this tactile kind of relationship to it. I get excited about new sounds and new ways of combining sound together.
Okay. You use a very specific word I'm going to use as a forced segue a little bit. You said like, oh yeah, those the Twisted Sister album and Iron Maiden stuff. It's the soundtrack of you growing up. I want to use the word soundtrack as a bit of a segue to this album coming out. There is a massive cinematic feel to this album, not just from an actual visual perspective in the music videos that have been released, but also from the album itself. And you've shared already in other interviews and press statements that you've been heavily inspired by, classic soundtrack composers and so on. The album follows a storyline as well. I've spoken to many people that have used a concept, whether it's very on-the-nose concept album or more of a bit of a thread through an album. And most of them seem to agree that it's really tough to then keep yourself within that story building. For you, using a somewhat of a concept and building a world for this particular album, was that a blessing or a curse? Did it make it easier as a North Star, or was that sometimes very challenging?
For this one, it was very helpful.
Okay.
Because I want some of the core idea. Before I started writing any music, I wanted to make this kind of dual thing. I've been doing a lot of orchestrations. I mean, I'll try to explain this. Just to some reasoning for why I ended up where I ended up is like, if you were to draw a straight line from like the very beginning until now, everything that is on this album is very down the center of what I've been doing.
Okay.
Black metal music with screeching vocals and screaming guitars and orchestral stuff. So basically, this is the ensembles are like the traditional metal band and a traditional symphony orchestra. And all the way since the beginning, of course, there's all the, Iron Maiden, Twisted Sister, 7-song conceptual keyboards on top. It's been, it's part of the blueprint of just like subconsciously what I associate with a great album. And that's 7-song is also a conceptual album,
Of course,
and it's, but also at the same time when we were listening to all this metal and eventually like Bathory and all the black metal stuff, but I always also had great love for Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, Bernard Herrmann, all the classic, horror movie and movie soundtracks. And, that was some of the inspiration for me to, you try to use these sounds, even though it's all DIY and no musical education or anything, we're just trying to add that layer of epicness to the music. And over time, I had the opportunity to study on my own, and try to build a bit of a toolbox in regards to doing it properly. And for this album, I just wanted to kind of take these things that I've been working on for such a long time through my career and just try to really elevate it, subjectively, and try to do. And so literally, I wrote it like a synopsis for a novel to as a backstory for the lyrics, and then I could play with like leitmotifs, like recurring themes throughout the music, and also for the orchestral version, there's a separate storyline, but that follows a similar kind of story arch, that is parallel and it blends into the main story. It's all too complex to go into, and it's not really important that people get that. But I think from the feedback that I have been getting is that people get a sense of there being cohesion.
Right.
There's this sense of that there's more to it than just the surface. And for those inclined to do so, there's more to experience. Discover. Hopefully, it's just as a fan, the albums that I got to listen to and discover something new and get deeper into the layers for every listen. That's the kind of albums that I want to try and make.
Is there a desire for you to take this piece of art beyond the audio only? Like should, if you had unlimited resources, let's say, would you love to see a play or an opera style show to bring this to life? Like, is that something that you'd like to do?
No. I'm ambitious, but not that ambitious. No, I mean, and the story is too vague and abstract for something like that, for sure. But it was very helpful to create this kind of foundation to create upon. And of course the 3 singles that I've released with music videos, it's like an abstract representation of the storyline. So they go together, and similarly the singles from the orchestral version, which are the same songs, they also eventually will, there are 2 of them released now, I think. They're beautifully animated by Kosten Cherno that kind of illustrate the narrative of the secondary story, which is a parallel thing. So that in itself I felt was pretty ambitious from my end. If I have any ambitions beyond this album, is of course that hopefully maybe my experience can make it easier for me to maybe get to do soundtracks for something in the future. That really, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. So, well, 2 questions. Number 1, just as a follow-up of what you just said, for somebody that has been really molding or shaping their own path for a long time and is known as somebody to, trying to do different things over and over again, when you say like, making soundtracks where you would have to, unless you are also, writer of the story and director and what have you, complement somebody else's vision, is that something that excites you, given that you've always kind of done your own vision?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the past, I think I would have felt that was more difficult.
Yeah.
But and as I said, I've been very accustomed to being able to just create for myself. But at the same time, there's a huge challenge with that as well. If I do collaborate with others, like help people out, it's like so much easier.
Right.
Because it's not my heart on the plate.
Yeah.
And so it's really being able to. You mentioned Ibaraki, I think. Producing for others
with Matt Heafy, for example.
Yeah, and being able to kind of use my some of the tools and strategies that I've built up over the years for my own stuff, and kind of try to apply that to someone else's vision. It was very rewarding, because I could kind of take a step back and just try to offer up. I've been doing this for such a long time. I've always assumed that this is just what everybody else does.
Right.
And that someone else has, the kind of the blueprint of what is the correct way to do it. And I'm just hauling along, trying to keep up. That's the general, with the imposter syndromes and everything. But then, in discussion, with Matt, for example, who had a very different background than me, even though we've shared so much that we started out very early, both of us.
Right.
So a lot of things in common, but also like totally different processes. So to through that project, and being able to do some, I did a remix, for the Halo effect. I even remixed something from Lustmord, and bits and pieces that I've been doing, and orchestrations for some other people as well, and it was nice to kind of try to apply that kind of those tools and experiences without the kind of the emotional personal pressure.
Right. I want to share with you a quick anecdote. So we very briefly met 2 years ago backstage at Graspop, and I was doing an interview in the artist lounge, and we're in the middle of an interview, and everybody all of a sudden just hushes. And it's like, oh, what's going on? And then somebody whispered, IHSAHN is walking over there. And everybody's like, oh. And I think you were just going to like the tent there with the lunch, and you're just grabbing some food and drinks, and but everybody was like, oh, we're in the presence of IHSAHN. Is it sometimes for you, because I mean, you're rightfully labeled as a musical genius. Is that sometimes annoying for you that people are always putting you on such a pedestal?
Yeah, I think I think it's very common. I mean, I've talked to Devin Townsend about this.
Yes, and exactly.
And in my book, he's like, he doubled Steve Vai's solos when he was like 18 or something, and the way he mixes and produces his stuff, it's like it seems limitless what he can do.
Right.
And talking to him, and he's a good friend, and like just to realize that he's dealing with the same imposter syndrome, because as as persons, we all are much more aware of the stuff that we don't know, and people only get to see the stuff that we're satisfied enough with to put out there. And also the whole kind of mythical aspect of doing what I do, that, and I've been called all the bad things you could possibly imagine, and a lot of the deserved and undeservedly, and the same thing with all the compliments,
right?
And people throw out things like genius and everything, which I feel honestly is undeserved, because but maybe I've joked about that and said, like, it's not me being humble, it's maybe your standards are too low. because of course I'm confident in some areas, and I have some experience, but then when I'm thinking about genius, I'm talking about true genius, right. like Bach or Mozart or
and maybe they would have told you the exact same thing, like, I deal with stress as well.
Probably, and but and also, as I've also said jokingly, like in situations like that, meeting fans or anything, people have a very strong emotional attachment to music that I happen to be a part of, in the same way that I happen to have a strong emotional attachment to music that I love, and I think very early on I realized that meet and greets and all that, some people get emotional. I'm a representative. I'm just like a symbolic focus point for a relationship they have to music that I happen to be part of. My job is not to screw that up. It's nothing to do with me as a person, which made it easier for me, and hopefully better for them. And I think the older I get, the more I feel this necessity to separate my private person and the music I put out there. Because especially these days with social media and everything, everything is so interconnected. What your favorite artist had for dinner. Like, who cares? As I've said this in this round, like, if you watch Star Wars, you don't want to see George Lucas like in the background, pointing. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be this big thing that is this kind of Dionysus ritual on stage. And I theorize that that's why you have bands like Ghost or Sleep Token or Rammstein, where like there are characters, you're part, and even if they get discovered for who the private person is, like, everybody wants to play along.
There's a million more questions I could ask you, and that I'll have to wait for another day. We're going to see so much of you. There's already a lot of festivals announced, so it's going to be a very busy year for you. Maybe to wrap us up, a very short question. What did you have for... No, I'm kidding. But I know that you wrote a lot of the music on piano for this album. And I've had a chance to listen to the full metal version of the album and the full orchestral version of the album, which is bombastic and epic. Should we keep our fingers crossed that there's like a demo album out there that's just you and piano that one day might see the light of day?
My piano skills are horrible. Literally, I think it's been misinterpreted, because of course I started out with piano when I was 6, 7, but then by the time I got my first electric when I was 10, I was a horrible piano student. And when I got my electric guitar, it even went downhill from there. So it's, my piano skills are literally like using it as a typing keyboard. I know I can make, get my way around to it's a huge tool for me creating music. But as I said, I've explained, I didn't write it on the piano per se. I wrote all the music as a piano short score, literally having 5 to 6 tracks in my sequencer. One for bass parts, one for chordal things, one for, texture, one for melodies, one for counter melodies, literally just trying to make a full scale arrangement that in itself, in simplicity, like a pencil sketch,
right?
And then I took that music and applied it to the metal ensemble, and then I took the same music and applied that to the orchestra and tried them to make them complement each other. So that was just a tool, like literally like sketching out something with a pencil, and then coloring it in after the fact.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know it's busy, and I want to let you go. So you
support.
Absolutely, my pleasure. To give you a bit of a break. Thank you so much. Exciting to see this album. These albums come out in mid-February, and then we'll see after you went to the extreme where you'll go to next, because that will be another question mark. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best with this release cycle.
Thank you so much.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.